Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Here's a quick civics lesson. What's politics? Well, politics is a system that allows people who violently disagree with each other to reach compromise without shedding blood. It's worked well for a long time in this country. But when one side decides it is no longer willing to compromise, that system breaks down. Without compromise, you no longer have politics. Instead, you have an especially fanatical form of religious belief. ISIS, for example, is not a political organization. Its leaders reject accommodation of any kind. Its leaders assume that everything they do has the approval of a higher power. They are good people. They know that. They know their beliefs are not simply correct. They're the only possible beliefs. Anyone who disagrees with them is, by definition, immoral. So a system like that does not allow for the possibility that good people might be mistaken once in a while or reach different conclusions sincerely. People with different opinions are, again, by definition, bad people. In fact, they may not even be people at all. They might be subhuman. They must be converted to the faith or crushed and eliminated. This is not an American way of looking at the world, and yet suddenly it's everywhere. And unfortunately, it now defines parts of the modern Democratic Party. Joe Biden didn't know this. Biden has been in Democratic politics all of his life, but he's taken the last couple of years off. He's been flying around the world getting rich by giving high-priced speeches. By the time Biden decided he wanted to run for president yet again, his party had changed completely. But nobody told him. So he made the mistake just the other day of saying this about Mike Pence.
The fact of the matter is, it was followed on by a guy who's a decent guy, our vice president, who stood before this group of allies and leaders and said, "I'm here on behalf of President Trump." And there was dead silence. Dead silence.
He's a decent guy, Biden said of Pence. That's an old-fashioned way to talk. That's how people in Washington, political Washington, used to talk about each other. It was one way that they reminded themselves that politics may be important, but it's not everything. Every political opponent is also, on some level anyway, a human being and a fellow American. Our common humanity is stronger than our political differences. That was the assumption that they had and have had at least since the Civil War. And by the way, it has to be the assumption that all of us have if we're going to live together in the same country. Cynthia Nixon disagrees with this. Nixon is a former actor. She's now a political extremist. She spends a lot of time on Twitter yelling at people. When she saw what Biden said about Pence, she was enraged. Cynthia Nixon disagrees with Mike Pence's views on gay rights questions. Therefore, she knows that Pence cannot be a decent person. It's just not possible. She told Joe Biden this on Twitter. Joe Biden had no choice but to agree with her. "You're right, Cynthia," Biden wrote back. "There is nothing decent about being anti-LGBTQ rights, and that includes the vice president." People used to say that Joe Biden was a decent guy, too. But in the modern Democratic Party, there are no decent guys anymore. There are only people who are with the program and apostates who deviate from it. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard suddenly is in the latter category. How did that happen? By any sane measure, Gabbard is a staunch progressive. But she does hold heterodox opinions on foreign policy. Instead of agreeing with Bill Kristol's foreign policy, she still believes what many progressives used to believe. She wants to keep the U.S. out of pointless foreign conflicts and instead focus on domestic concerns. And for having that opinion, she's almost been expelled from her own party. Watch. They've dismissed you as sucking up to this dictator. You're a bad person is basically what they're saying. Has anybody actually debated you on the points that you're making?
No. Constantly I see, again, people from both parties instead resorting to name-calling or superficial attacks because they refuse to engage on the substance of this argument about why they continue to push for and try to wage these regime change wars, ignoring the disastrous consequences on the people in those countries and the American people.
So that's suddenly a very controversial thing to say in the modern Democratic Party, a place where there is no room for dissent anywhere on any issue. On Wednesday, for example, a handful of Democrats joined with Republicans to add an amendment to a universal background checks bill in the House. That amendment would require reporting a gun buyer to ICE if that buyer is an illegal alien, a group that is not allowed to buy guns in the United States. In a closed-door meeting after the vote, the Democrats who joined with Republicans on that were reportedly denounced by party leadership for their racism. The party's new ideological enforcer, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, warned that Democrats who help Republicans in any way would go on a, quote, list and would have primary challenges next time they ran. So that's what extremism looks like. The enemy is 100% wrong, and we are 100% right, always. They are going to hell, and we're saved.
What is happening here is a sin against God. I believe that.
Jesus said, "Suffer the little children unto me." He did not say, "Let the children suffer."
A time in which we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Thank God there wasn't a wall that stopped him from seeking refuge in Egypt. Thank God that wall wasn't there. And thank God there was an administration like this.
And while we're doing the Lord's work by ministering to the needs of God's creation, they are ignoring those needs, which is to dishonor the God who made them.
Mm-hmm. We're doing God's will. We're on God's side. God loves us. God does not love the other side. They're sinners. They're going against God's will. And in fact, you know what? They could be Nazis.
This is the United States of America. It isn't Nazi Germany.
Bottom line, Donald Trump increasingly looks like Hitler in Nazi Germany.
Much like Hitler took over the Nazi Party, Trump has taken over the Republican Party.
If you vote for Trump, then you, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis going, you here, you here.
They are the tactics that have been used through history by the worst purveyors of pure evil, including slave traders, including Nazis, including terrorists.
So what you're looking at, that's not politics, it's a cult. Nuance is the enemy. Accommodation is a sin. Ask too many questions or think too many independent thoughts and you will be denounced. You'll wind up on Commissar Ocasio-Cortez's list. We reject this completely. It's totalitarian. It's also stupid and boring. It's a replacement for thought. It's, by the way, destroying the country as well. We will always welcome people we disagree with onto this show. We assume they are decent people. And by the way, mostly they are decent people. We'll do our best to find common ground with them and anyone else whenever we can, because why wouldn't we? And that's why you'll often see sincere leftists on this show treated with respect. Tulsi Gabbard, Glenn Greenwald, Ro Khanna, Michael Tracy, many others. We disagree with these people on a lot of things, but not on everything. And that's the point. But most important of all, they are Americans just like us, and that matters most. We need to remember that.